upon my previous video about the need for science and scientific thinking in the field of hypnosis, I wanted to talk about something related today. And that is why science by press release in the hypnotherapy and hypnosis field really frustrates me. At the end of 2016, alongside the main body of my keynote presentation at the UK Hypnosis Convention, I spoke about a topic briefly that's something I've spoken about often to fellow professionals since, and that is science by press release. In my Hypnosis Weekly podcast, I have a hypnosis in the media section whereby I refer to the way in which hypnosis gets portrayed in the media, and I discuss whether it is enhancing or holding back the hypnotherapy field, and as this field seeks more credibility and understanding, and certainly that's something that's important to me. So what I'm talking about here today is made all the more pertinent by these current popular discussions and debates about fake news in our media and people's seeming lack of critical thinking skills that are required to fully understand and examine what they're presented with in the media before they agree with it and share it. Heck, we all know that lots of shared articles or memes in our social media news feeds have not been read or researched before they were shared, don't we? So if I just let me contextualize this a little bit before I focus upon the field of hypnotherapy. There's something, let me tell you why I've got pixie dust written up here. Back in the mid-2000s, journalists were earnestly reporting the news that pig's bladder extract had been used by scientists in a major breakthrough, allowing one man to seemingly and magically regrow a finger. And this is a true story, by the way. The headlines were stuff like "Pixie dust helps man grow new finger." That was the Daily Telegraph. The amazing pixie dust made from pig's bladder that regrew a severed finger in 4 weeks. Another headline: "Pixie dust from pig's bladder regrows man's finger." So Fox News, the Daily Mail, and it was thought that the dust kickstarts the body's natural healing process by sending out signals that mobilize the body's own cells in repairing damaged tissue. And this is how it was being explained. And the patient was a man called Lee Spivak, and he was given this powder by A-Cell, a large, long-standing biotech firm that was founded by Alan Spivak. He is Lee Spivak's big brother. Dr. Badialak is A-Cell's chief scientific advisor, and he conducted the research and the TV interviews that made headlines in the US and around the globe with this scientific breakthrough. The day after the Press Association and the BBC put this story out, it appeared on Fox News. And later that day, it hit ABC in Australia. And being broadcast about everywhere in between along the way, and all used the same quotes and different permutations. That's how news works, I guess. But closer scrutiny of this story found it to be largely flawed. There were conflicting accounts from researchers of the pilot study about how much finger actually grew back. The pictures available were inconclusive. The pixie dust formula has not been able to replicate the results from the isolated case. Yet for a while, this breakthrough had landed. People believed it, and the story was covered as if it had scientific consensus that was supporting it. And this was science by press release. So, I want to draw some parallels to something in our own field. A couple of years back, Dr. David Spiegel, in his endless crusade to demonstrate that hypnosis has a unique brain pattern, a unique signature in the brain, he demonstrated as much according to his study. And you can Google many of the popular news snippets that were sharing his findings. It seemed like the entire field of hypnotherapy shared the media's reports of this study. Twitter and Facebook feeds were filled with this story within hypnotherapy circles in particular. Hypnotherapists everywhere were sharing it and telling people about it and discussing this impressive result. Yay, we've got proof that hypnotherapy exists, it's got a thing. Media outlets were picking it up too and sharing snippets that made for some really interesting news. Yet how many of those who are then sharing this media's representation of the study actually read the study, or read any critical appraisal of the study, or read any of the journal's peer review board's comments about the study, or sought them out? Virtually none, because if they had, they would see that some authors, some academics, some researchers disputed and questioned the findings of the study. In fact, the findings of the study have not made a major impact upon the field and have not been universally accepted by fellow academics, neuroscientists, or hypnosis researchers. They do not form the basis of our understanding of hypnosis today, despite some major conclusions being drawn from the headlines of this press release. Some might think that this was also science by press release, just like the pixie dust finger regeneration powder. Many of the central premises behind this study were brought into question. The way suggestion was used, the way a so-called neutral hypnosis was elicited. This featured in the journal Cerebral Cortex, whose peer review board have very few hypnosis academics or researchers, and Spiegel's very conceptualization of what hypnosis actually is has been questioned and critiqued throughout the years. All those who blindly shared the story, in my opinion, would benefit massively from knowing about the debate, the discussion that the study stimulated in academic circles in particular, much more so than simply the media headlines. Now, I'm not taking a side in particular here. I'm honest. I admire David Spiegel and the contribution that he's made to attempting to understand the subject of hypnosis and the ensuing debate that his work creates that illuminates so much. Perhaps I should just adopt this stance that all publicity is good publicity when the media pick up these stories as we get more exposure. I just find this lack of critical appraisal and the seeming lack of desire to understand more than the headlines from the majority of frontline hypnotherapists rather frustrating. It sort of paints us in a very particular way. One of the things I love about my Hypnosis Weekly podcast is that I get to speak to some wonderful hypnosis professionals from all over the world. And I open up with the same words at the beginning of every single episode. Amongst other things, I say the following. I say, this podcast is something that I want to encompass a feeling of embracing diversity, celebrating the field of hypnosis, and encouraging friendly, professional, enjoyable discussion and debate, as well as doing its best to inform and educate. I go on to say that I do not share the same stance as most of our guests and at times have major differences in approach and leaning, but all are incredibly lovely people who I'd happily talk with until late in the pub, and all of whom, following their time here on my Hypnosis Weekly podcast, I have a great deal of respect for. So that's what I say. I say this stuff at the beginning of every show. And it's true, and it's the kind of ethos that sits behind it. Within the field of hypnosis, I found many people get hostile towards dissenting or different perspectives to their own. So I wanted to demonstrate with the podcast that even when I disagree wholly with a fellow hypnotherapist's perspective or professional stance, we can discuss it and debate it professionally and courteously, sticking to the arguments and the topic and not veering towards insult or making personal remarks, and ensuring that we are free from the use of logical fallacies to make the points that one supports. Now, that said, a major ethos of my own training college is that we all learn both sides to any debate, any discussion, any philosophy, and we be aware of those sides before we have that debate. Now, I discussed this in detail during in the content of my regression video. Go have a look at that. When you examine both sides of a debate or discussion, you aim to be fully informed. And I find it frustrating when someone remonstrates with a point that I might make because it just goes against what they believe in rather than adhering to any facts. Often in the field of hypnotherapy, what they believe in is all they've been taught. They're invested financially, psychologically, emotionally in what they were taught, and therefore are less inclined to apply neutral, objective, critical thinking to their own biases and beliefs. And they become entrenched in dogma and defend their stance without knowing opposing views or perspectives, and certainly often do not know what the evidence would even suggest about what they are saying. So regarding any hot topic in our field, whether you agree with one side or the other, or whether you agree with neither side, are you open-minded enough to see both sides? Now, I'm assuming that most of you watching this right now are thinking yes in reply to that question. And if most people listening to me saying that are thinking yes, then if you are representative of the field of professional hypnotherapists, they'd probably be thinking yes too, right? So if that is so, why is it that so many schools, colleges, teaching establishments within the hypnotherapy world are so flipping dogmatic about what they teach? Now, I'm not going to go on in real detail about this because, like I said, I have covered this kind of topic in my previous videos. But when we're teaching these subjects, why not highlight the limitations of that which you teach too? Isn't that progress? Isn't that how we develop and enhance this field, to build upon what we know, to challenge and improve upon what we do, to have a rounded, fully open-minded understanding of the entire subject, and not just feel the need to dig our heels into one small aspect and defend it by suggesting it's better than everything else, regardless of any evidence to the contrary. I just feel strongly about this. Is it because those that teach this stuff just don't know the other side of these things? Is it because they're scared of being challenged and being seen to be left wanting? Do they just know no better, were taught that way, and therefore espouse the way they were taught as the right option, like it's the law? But what if you trained 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or over 20 years ago like I did? And if, for example, you've not been kept abreast of developments and not done any relevant CPD, continued professional development, what worse still, what if your CPD is being conducted by people who know no better, who continue to offer up this single dogmatic approach? I think it's important, especially for hypnotherapists, to be able to see, at least just to be able to see, but ideally fully understand both sides to a philosophy, a debate, a theory, and so on. And that's what shows open-mindedness. It shows intelligence. It shows you know your subject, you know your field. And the field of hypnotherapy, as with many, many other fields, has this proliferation of this kind of phenomena. Many people who attend conferences, trainings, conventions, and CPD courses looking to confirm what they already know rather than learn anything new. Likewise, as my main topic today, headlines get shared without knowing the true extent of what is actually being shared. And again, I think that's lazy. I think this holds us back. And I urge everyone watching this, go and question what you do. Go and question the way you're being taught or the way you teach. I urge you to question what you believe and what your biases are as a hypnotherapist towards the way in which you do what you do within the hypnotherapy field. Don't just fight and bicker on forums. Instead, develop a deeper sense of delving into our subject matter. And we'll better move this glorious field of ours away from the fringes where it exists currently. Charles Darwin said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that is most adaptable to change. So come on, hypnotherapists, let's be adaptable to change. Let's think critically. Let's benefit from some of the disagreement and create a culture within our field that moves it forward. And maybe that will result in hypnotherapists looking further into the research that makes its way into media stories that they share so readily. At least my regrown fingers are crossed for that outcome. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do subscribe to the channel to get the latest video updates as soon as they happen. I send you my very best wishes. Goodbye for now.